Oh my god. Sorry. Um, so yeah, made 61 pages of Limerick here. 61 pages of Limerick about Mr. Limerick going to ice. And I like it. Let's see what you think about it. Alright, doing it now. Start streaming. There we go. Oh yeah, music.
Mr. Limerick signs up to join ICE. His training begins. The instructor had hands made of steel, whose commands made the new recruit kneel. Your compassion's a flaw, he would snap with a claw. Now stand up and seize what you feel. The new trainees all dressed up in green were a sight rarely ever foreseen. They marched through the muck with no shortage of luck, and practiced being shockingly mean. He learned how to wear the cold mask and to handle each difficult task. He no longer feels shame or remember his name, just the emblem pinned firm to the class. The reasons why Mr. Limerick joined ICE, namely the high pay and the chance to see Dean Kane. The steady and generous pay made the nasty job feel quite okay. Paycheck so stout helped stamp out the down, what he did through the long, bitter day. And almost of the job made him wince. At a perk with most powerful influence, there stood Superman Dean, looking lean, tall, and keen. A brief, blissful, star-stricken suspense. The downside, having to withstand Christie known the day was the primary lure, and for sighting Dean Kane was the cure. But a factor so grim brought the light to the dim, and her face caused the brain to implore. It was Christie Gnome's icy stare, with a dead-eyed and merciless glare. Her sharp, cruel decree left no freedom to be, just a hollow, unfeeling despair. He would shudder when she would draw near, as her voice cut through hope and through fear. This political ghoul waged a war on the cruel, and her smile was the thing he'd most dread to hear. Christie Gnome takes a shy to Mr. Limerick, a truly horrific new fault from a monster in office besought, as Gnome gave a smile, full of political guile. A dark new ambition was caught. She had marked him out from the rest, with a gaze that put nerves to the test. You have promise, she said, lifting up his poor head. Your soul's almost been laid to rest. Her attention, a spotlight of dread, made him wish he was already dead. This unnatural prize, reflected in her dead eyes, a promotion of misery spread. Mr. Limerick tries to convince Christie Gnome that he's gay. A stratagem born of raw fear made him wish he would simply disappear. So he choked out a line, feeling utterly divine. My dear governor, I am queer. She just paused for a second or two, with a chill that would cut clean through. Then she laughed, low and mean, a horrifying scene, as if something both broken and new. Well, that's fine, she then said with a shrug, and her interest felt like a drug. Your devotion's all fixed. It's a mindset that's mixed, just a different kind of loyal thug. So he stood there, both shaken and pale, as she opened the door in the veil. I approve, she declared, with a conscience quite bared. For a different dog on my trail, the best guards, she then went on to purr, are the ones who can truly demur. You can blend in unseen, a most effective machine, while enforcing my will to concur. She then clapped him twice on the back, with a force that could shatter a shack. Welcome to my inner ring, to the absolute thing. Now go out and don't you dare crack. Oh Christ, thought Mr. Limerick, I've acquired an additional beard. A truly horrible thought left the poor young agent distraught. He had not sought this prize with its cold, deadening eyes. Yet Christy Noman him sought. She believed he was one of her kind, a new operative she could twist till unkind. And to sell this new lie, he'd have to learn how to embody her bigoted mind. This beard, as he called it in dread, was a mantle of misery spread. To please her sick whim, he'd have to sink in and crush all the goodness once bled. 2 weeks of blissful training passed with Christy Nome out of town. For 2 weeks he could take a deep breath and escape from her clutches and death. No gnome in sight brought a sliver of light and a pause from her venomous test. The drills, by comparison, felt like heaven. With her ice cold regard unforgiven, he could march without dread, with no cold gaze ahead. And a boot camp was almost like leaving. He forgot that she'd pinned him a badge from a much more attractive and nice. No, he scrubbed that thought clean. The most disgusting husband. How her focus still clung him twice. But the respite, like sun after rain, soothed the anguish and washed out the stain. He could sleep through the night, with a future less bright, and pretend he was normal again. Her absence, a beautiful gift, allowed him a small lift and swift, moments free from her chain, which erased the worst pain, and let fractured young Limerick drift. The next weekend, Christy Nome returned and wanted to see how the gay Mr. Limerick wound down. Or sumptuously pitched a night out at Steamworks, a bathhouse he had never been to, nor cared to. That bright weekend came to a close, when the chilling announcement arose. She was back in the base, with a smile on her face, and her eyes had a terrifying pose. It's good to see how my protege thrives, when the rigid day's training arrives. Tell me, how do you play? On a typical Saturday, Limerick shriveled up, spirit revives, so I thought we could go out for a treat. Her suggestion was far from discreet, to a place called Steamworks, where the gay-bodied jerks. He just stood there, defeated, beat. He had heard of the place, rumors were rank, and the pictures he saw made him think, whatever slim gods, he was not in those odds. Like a specimen trapped in a tank. What a wonderful plan, Limerick lied, with a horror he struggled to hide. Let's go see the scene. Your magnificent queen, my own governor right by my side. At the last minute, Mr. Limerick called out with a case of syphilis and expressed feigned disappointment that he would not be able to oblige Nome for some weeks while treatment commenced. The clock on the wall crept with dread as he plotted inside of his head. Then an answer appeared, hopelessly weird, and the sickness was suddenly sad, with a cough that was tragically fake. On the line, for his duty's own sake, my governor unriddled and stricken. A flame from the deep, a promise I simply must keep. And my care is a reason I've shaken. It seems, he said, letting it drop, that I cannot tonight make the stop. That steamworks, my queen. What a horrible scene, but my syphilis won't let me drop. Christy, no let's out of harm. It's an honorable germ, you have one. There is purity there, in an element so rare, in a body my work has undone. You're a fighter, her praise was so slick, getting hit with that marvelous sick. Take your medicine strong, right my logic of wrong, and report back when you fixed your own prick. He hung up the damned phone with a shake. A disgusting escape he must take. For a couple of weeks, he's completely unleashed from the monster whose soul he must break. But the new rep was put on the line, that he's filthy and compromised. The whole station now knew, every agent brand new, that gay Limerick never was wise. The diagnosis, it stuck like a stain, a protective but terrible chain. He was marked and bizarre, a new kind of scar that brought comfort from all the pain. A gay fellow Ice Trini reaches out via email, comforting him from the stigma of STDs and of the hypocritical slut chaining of fellow colleagues, and remarkably no flirtation, just professionalism, kindness. It unnerved Mr. Limerick. So the very next morning, he came, a new person entering the game. Not a foe or friend, just a message to send on a screen with an anonymous name. An email from trainee 341/B said a kindness he could not foresee. It's a tactic of power, to shame and to glower, for your truth and the way that you be. They're all hypocrites, passing their dirt, and the system will treat you like hurt. Take the medicines true. They all work for you, and don't let their small words invert. There was nothing seductive inside, not a single intention to hide, just a professional grace and a safe, steady space, which he never once encountered or tried. Mr. Limerick stared at the screen. A person so awfully clean. It was worse than the plague. It was truth in a bag, and the kindness he'd never foreseen. This pure, clean, and well-meaning note left him feeling quite trapped in a boat. There's no hidden catch, no malevolent batch, just a person from this new throat. He's accustomed to bile and disgust, to the ashes of ethical trust. But this simple be well was a different kind of hell, a new poison he couldn't adjust. What's the game? What's the masterful goal? Does this kindness still clutch at his soul? Is it some kind of trap? Perhaps a new map? To lead him to a deeper black hole? He read the kind words once again, and a feeling he couldn't name began. It was worse than the shame, a much worse kind of flame, a concern that he didn't yet win. He printed the note small and neat. Then he folded it into a sheet, in the sole of his boot, to seal in the brute, a compassion he couldn't yet meet. Mr. Limerick finished his training without further hitch, and was assigned to an office in an American city, where we see his first 6 months in the field. The final 6 weeks flew right on by, with a new kind of tear in each eye. He was graduated and freed, full of well-mannered greed, with an awful and governmental tie. They assigned him a desk and a post on the desolate coast, a grey skied port town where the spirits go down, and a new kind of misery he'd host. For 6 months he learned how to wait for a summons that sealed people's fate. He would stare at the screen in a fluorescent lit zine and just listen to what chum man Lyle hate. He processed the phones with a flick. Just another political trick. Human cargo reduced to a page that's abused, and the pen that is terribly quick. He never saw Christy Gnome's face in this grim and efficient new place. He could work undetected, a mind unaffected, a zombie in function and space. He would eat his sad lunch all alone, in a bland institutional zone, and he'd think of that male, an invisible hell, that's still not on the surface of bone. Mr. Limerick making friends and frenemies and unintended acquaintances among his co-workers. There was a supervisor named Pike, with a handshake firm and a look so like a predator grinning at the places you're sinning, that your own damn confession you'd like. He'd slap Limerick's back, call him kid, and tell him what solid he did, with the steel in the spine of this land and thine. So just close up your conscience, forbid. Then a clerk, Marybeth, small and quite meek, with a nervous look, weak in her cheek, would drop case files and whisper, and seem to crisp up when Pike's heavy footsteps would creak. She'd sometimes catch Limerick's blank eye, and he'd see her own psyche cry for some kind of pardon in the bureaucratic garden, where both of their talents could die. Then a new acquaintance arrived, hard and cruel and hugely derived from some kind of hate that was sealing a fate with a joy not at all falsified. This was Martinez, man so severe that he made Pike seem more human and clear. He loved the loud yell, and the chase, and the smell of a frightened sob, gasping for fear. And Martinez took to poor Limerick quick, with a comrade in arms kind of shtick. I heard of your flair, he'd say with a stare, with a sigh from the gay friendly trick. He thought Limerick's lie was true grit, a beautiful bucolored fit. He would laugh and nudge on till the break of the dawn about being a weapon and so your fake estate was a genius move, said Martinez, happy to groove. They let the queer slide. If their purities died, and their usefulness helps us improve, you're twisted like us. Martinez grinned, a friendship beginning to spin on a web of disgust in the bureaucratic dust. A new, functional, terrible kin, and Limerick just nodded and smiled. The agent assigned, tamed and beguiled. He played the right part, with a false, beating heart, and embraced the revolting and vile. But the folded note deep in his shoe made a pattern of poison anew. For each foul new friend was a sick, hopeless end, and the kindness started to push through. He'd replay Marybeth's trembling fear. He would mimic Pike's menacing sneer. And Martinez's glee was a key to a scene of depravity growing unclear. So he built a new map of the place, with a grin on his well-mannered face. He knew what they thought when their back was uncaught, and catalogued shop with a grace. His friends were a means to an end. His acquaintances broken, and then he'd just move on along till the next wretched song, and let pity inside him begin. He was growing a network of pain, a new agent washed by the rain of a million split souls with insignificant goals in a loop of existential drain. His new job was a kind of new art where he practiced falling apart, but he learned how to blend till the campaign would end. As a small, inconsequential dark, in the evenings he'd walk past a bar with a strange symbol on a door, bizarre, a place he had seen. From train through 41/B, a silent star near him afar. He never went in, never dared, just the ghost of a question that aired in the back of his mind, a much different kind, the life he'd somehow still impaired. Mr. Limerick does a deep dive of the soul to inquire if he's into men, women, or both. One evening, with paperwork stacked, an irrational thought that attacked his whole soul at its base, with no seeming true trace of a genuine passion untracked. He considered a woman he'd seen, and a local depressing routine was a comfort he sought. A mechanical thought, just a sad, conventional dream. His mind's eye then wandered to men, and the chaos that could lie within was a danger he craved, a new life to be saved, or just escaping the pig pen. He was neither woman nor man, but a purpose or base matter plan, just a pull on the scale, a soul-bending gale. At this passionate clinical scan, he was not attracted to flesh, to the intricate designs of the mesh, but the roles that they wore, and the power at the fore was the thing that he wished to refresh. Attraction was strategy to him, a performance upon the world's rim. He could fake it all out, wipe the grime of the dab, and he practiced for acting on a whim. So he walked to that place with the sign, and he watched at its entry for a sign. Did he want to go in? Did it pull at the skin? Or was fear the only design? Nothing stirred in him, hot or cold, just a curious feeling, quite old. An observer he stayed, an identity frayed, a new story still waiting to sold. The answer was clear, and it stank. With an ideological stank, he was into the ghost, and a freedom he'd lost, which he'd capture, control, and then thank. He was into the role and the sham, not a lover, but just simply a damn complicated new toy, a government ploy built of absolute moral wham. Mr. Limerick then walked himself home and let that new darkness now roam. He was free from the lust, erotic-based dust, just a tool in the existential dome, and that freedom was horribly bleak. It was the loneliest kind of a peak. No desire, no drive, just a hole, yet alive, for the powerful and the uniquely weak. So he put a new tick in his brain. That sexuality wasn't the chain. His new chains were inside, where the chaos must hide. And in being a perfect, false thing, Stephen Miller visits the office to embed with the boots on the ground, to play at Stormtrooper for a round, and inadvertently reveal his terrible pathos all around.
I know, don't question me.
Still as crept into the stale air, with a visitor few men could bear. Miller arrived as a plexiglass hive of new torments was put everywhere. He insisted on joining a raid on some poor souls he thought should be flayed, to embed with the boys and deploy policy noise in the filthiest grim cavalcade. He wanted to feel the good fight, wearing cheap tactical armor so tight, to taste the real fear of those trembling near in the small hours of pale morning light. But his hands shook a terrible pace as he fumbled with gear on his face. His barked out commands were like sounds from cold lands, lacking warm for a bit of real grace. When they busted the door of a flat with a desperate couple fat, with a child in her womb, and the gloom of the tomb, Miller started to look at the mat. He was meant to be menacing, grim, but his presence felt flimsy and slim. He pointed and yelled, his true courage self-quelled, like a page that a boy had torn him. He looked at a picture tacked up, a small child's watercolor cup. He paused for a beat on that little work knee, and a small, pathetic tear crept up. It wasn't for those in the room. It was for the hatred's own gloom. He saw his own face in that desolate place, and his own self-consuming doom. Then he shouted, a shriek, not a word, the most horrible nonsense you've heard. And he begged from the scene, from all world he was keen to burn down, but found he was blurred. The real agents just gave him a stare at the weakness laid naked and bare. The ideologue frail, with a weakness and will. Now a glitch in the engine of fear. Limerick watched the whole grotesque play, and he took the whole image away. This great monster of state was just filled up with hate for the things that he couldn't convey. Miller fled from the squalid flat maze, back to polished and power-lined days. But Limerick had seen a pathetic man, mean, who was caught in a policy maze. He felt that familiar weird stir, not of pity, but something to blur with the rest of the things that these power bands bring. A new data point to defer. That night, in the office's grey calm, he recorded the horror as bomb. One more file in the stack, never looking to backtrack. Just another dispassionate song. The folder, it grew fat in a drawer, full of things he saw and much more. Each week, powerful freak with a soul that would shriek, all items to settle a score. Then the day came when Mr. Limerick saw an injustice he could no longer ignore, a sight he could not scour or ignore. A moment that began his process of quiet quitting.
I thought I was rhyming, but I better.
Tuesday, as bland as the rest, but Limerick still will to the test. A new shipment of flesh in bureaucratic mesh, and the mother laid bare on her breast. A family from Guanajuato came, tired of a life that was lame. They had crossed the whole sand, with a child in each hand, just to be stuck in this hellish game. The father was taken straight back, with a sigh and a heart, loud whack. Then the daughter was cued, looking subdued and unglued, for processing through the whole stack. The last was a small, crying boy, about 8 years old, full of joy. That was stamped out and gone, for the break of the dawn. A broken, destroyed adult toy. He sat in a chair, small and slight, and refused with a desperate might to fill out a form in a climate of storm, and to walk in the stark, joyless light. And the clerk, Maribeth, said with a tear, "Please, just write your information here." But the boy wouldn't speak. His small, trembling cheek showed a soul filled with utter despair. He had seen Martinez and Pike, and their method, controlling and spike. He saw how they'd break each small soul, for God's sake, with a sneer and a cruel, lawful strike. He'd seen Miller's pathetic collapse, a black hole inside the soul's maps. He felt every cheap, dirty secret they'd keep in the office's bureaucratic traps. He'd read one email, clean and so kind, that had rattled the bars of his mind. He had cataloged pain, like a new kind of rain. But this boy broke the pattern design, in that kid's brave and stubborn despair. Limerick saw much cleaner air. He was not like the rest, a well-rehearsed test, but a truth hanging purely and bare. A single hot tear formed a line, a weakness he tried to design. It wasn't just duty or ideological beauty, but a strange new and foreigner's decline. He stood up and walked to the boy with no fake, adult-a-child ploy, just a quiet, soft look from a well-worn, torn book of the policy's endless employ. He didn't say, "Stop" or "Be still," or "The governance was a pill." He just crouched on the floor, and he opened the door of a space that was suddenly still. He pulled out a small, half-used pad and a pen that the office had. He then drew a small cat with a tacky top hat, then a dog, then a bird. Wasn't bad. He didn't say, "Write down your name." He didn't continue the game. He just drew on a sheet, creating a fleet of small doodles to find the shame. The boy stopped his sniffling and watched. His small curiosity botched. Then he pointed a thumb, saw the whale in the scum, and a slight, hopeful smile was uncoached. This was not in the manuals are. It was not playing a single false part. It was not a new tool. It was breaking the rule by designing a brand new start. Maribeth, from her small plastic desk, saw the change in the atmosphere's best. A small, quiet breach, which was well out of reach. A small break in oppression's arrest. She didn't say anything then, but her brain had a new pattern, a web. She saw a small crack that wouldn't turn back in the bleak state-run system of sin. Later, Miller filed his complaint, which Pike read with a look like a saint. That new hire is soft and a bit aloof. We should watch him. He may be quaint. Martinez just laughed at the news, but it lacked some of passion's abuse. He was testing the ground for the thing he had found, a new comrade with stranger new clues. So Limerick went home to his flat, and he thought of the small boy and cat, and he knew with a dread that a new plan in his head was the future he had to be at. He quietly quit in the night, putting up a new desperate fight, not with slogans and screams or political schemes, but by quietly dulling the light. He would do his damn job to the letter, and then make each new file so much better. for the ones he would help. In the deepest deep kelp, by a slow-acting bureaucratic fetter. Every form he could slow to a crawl. Every detail that challenged the law. Every loophole he'd find for the desperate mind to give justice a sake, glitchy call. It was quiet, subversive, and deep. While the powerful demons would sleep, he would use their own rules to fight all their ghouls and plant doubt in the fields they would reap. The system he loathed, he now mastered to make sure the bastards were plastered with small leaks in the dam, as slow as a lamb, a slow-acting, insidious disaster. The folded note in his soul had begun to feel different. A new thing was spun. Not just kindness, a map to help people snap at the lines that were shot from a gun. He was still a small cog in the whole thing, a mechanical bird with clipped twing. But a cog can be jammed, or be slightly mis-scammed, so the whole massive engine feels sting. That night, an email he wrote, a new chapter in courage was smoked. To trainee 341/B, he wrote simply and free. Thanks, I think I'm beginning to see. Then he erased it and went back to work. A perfectly designed, quiet jerk. A perfect new face for this desolate place in this small, complicated new murk. After a few months of malicious compliance, Mr. Limerick stumbles upon an opportunity to make a most damning mistake that would cost ICE its standing and its funding. He became an artist of files and the bureaucratic bile, a misplaced signature for a future that's sure. His a powerful, beautiful style. He'd misread a deportation clause for a temporary, wonderful pause. He'd forget the stamp. That would ruin the cam. Then say, me culpa, with honest applause. He slowed Martinez's raids by a thread, with a system glitch filled with dread. He would loose the right forms in bureaucratic storms just by getting the sequence misled. His reviews praised him. Pike was so proud. It's Limerick, he follows the cloud. He's precise and so clear. No ambition is here. Just a wonderful agent unallowed. He got access to servers he lacked, to a digital skeleton stack of the truly deported, the purposely thwarted, and the ones who got totally cracked. It was data not meant for the desk. Program that put souls to the test. Called Project Ouroboros. A process carnivorous that erased lives for national zest. It was a new purge list digitized, where the legal was downsized and compromised. It targeted activists and the critics of this. A black book for the tyrannized. One Tuesday, a password appeared on a monitor previously feared, left open by Martinez, who'd been called to a meeting, a chance to see something revered. It was the full court, the source, the whole mass, the central Ouroboros pass, a key to the thing, made of digital string, that the whole awful future would pass. He could copy the files to a drive, and cause the entire hive to be ruined. But it was a hard thing, a new kind of sting, not just saving one person, but two.
End. To
He
win.
thought of that boy drawing a whale, his own small, kind, ethical trail. He thought of the mail, and the soul-shaking fail of just fixing one piece of the grail. This was not a small act of a crack, but a full-on, definitive attack. A mushroom cloud choice, a rebellious voice. That could never be taken right back. He stared at the screen, and he felt every principle that he had built melt. This was not quite quitting, but a dangerous flitting between being caught and a hero's belt. So he copied the files with speed, planting digital seeds in the weed. A small drive in his sock, with our burrows locked. A disastrous, beautiful deed. Then he walked to the office's west wing to see Meredith silently sing. He accidentally dropped his small drive and it stopped by the trash where the old paper fling. He didn't look back as he left, but he planted a new kind of theft. On the data to white, he had coded one stripe, a map to the true moral theft. The drive was designed to be found by a person who walked on the ground, not some four-way leaker, but a local bleak seeker who would push at the cracks all around. Maribeth saw the drive at noon, and she picked up the device, opportune. She plugged it right in to see where it had been, and she felt a new strength in you. He gave her a powerful bomb that would shatter the calm of the storm, a tool she could use to give them their news and to break the whole system from form. That night, as the servers backed up, Limerick felt a new kind of sup. A small click, and the whole of our brew stole its own core and then ate itself up. He had designed it that way, just in case. If they tried to erase or retrace, the purged list would feed on its own awful seed, a self-hating monster of waste. It didn't delete the files, not yet. It just randomized them on a small bet, so the agents would find every single case blind. Just a pile of useless regret. The next day, a whole new chaos was born, as our burrows, broken and torn, started eating the names and their bureaucratic claims in a pattern of beautiful scorn. And Martinez, he ran like a fool. As his whole career started to cool, the data was scrambled, the nobles all trembled by a digital, nonsensical rule. Mike started yelling a new kind of dread as he found that all his lists were dead. And all over the country, the whole damn machinery had a brand new and massive hole in its head. Miller, from far, gave a shout. Find the traitor! We'll weed them all out! But the system had fractured, and Limerick captured the whole damn collapse, full of doubt. He sat at his desk, calm and slight, as the very foundations lost light. And he drank his bad coffee and acted all dozy as the whole of the damn thing took flight. He didn't reveal or expose. He just planted a million new woes in a quiet, new way that would ruin their day and the power they loved and oppose. His quiet quitting had reached its new peak, a small, silent saboteur shriek, and the folded old note in the bottom of his coat seemed to burn like a glorious, future-like cheat. He had become the new virus, the glitch, the thing that made all power itch, and he started to smile for the very first while at the beautiful chaos he'd hitch. A footnote, a bug in the code, that began the dismantling road. A new kind of start of a fallible art, of a critical, slow-moving mode. That night, he got an email so brief from the ghost in the gay world, the relief. You saw the alert, the program's inert, a beautiful sight, chief relief. And for once, Limerick didn't erase it. He didn't feel fear or just waste it. He wrote 3 words back on the dull digital track. A new future beginning to trace it. See you soon, he wrote. Then he floated on that hope, not as agent or ghost, but an actual host of a thing he felt truly and deep and close. The chaos, it bloomed like a rash on the skin of the political clash. For a week they worked on, till the feeling was gone, but the system was burned to an ash. The Ourborough self-cannibal feast brought the operation an end and release. For the first time in years, they had human-like fears, and their power was lessened, deceased. Martinez was forced to resign for a failure he couldn't define. He went back to the street with a sour defeat, a small, pointless cog out of line. Pike was given a harsh reprimand for the lapses he hadn't quite planned. He was moved to a desk where the work is a mess and the files are handled by hand. The project was buried for good, a dangerous thought, understood. The perch list had vanished, its damage now banished, in a way that their budget now withstood. The whole damn enforcement felt slack, like a new kind of heart attack. No more digital might, just the day and the night. A weaker, less confident pack. And Meredith, she didn't say squat, but her hands didn't shake like a blot. She had learned a new trick, just one digital click. From the day that he left on the spot, she didn't go to the press, or confess, or make any mess. She just learned the whole flaw, and without breaking a law, she could circumvent all of the stress. She became a small saint, the gray of the building where hope comes to stay. A new kind of strength at a critical length from a small act of sabotage way. Limerick got a commendation for maintaining calm jubilation during the whole crisis. So surprisingly priceless. He was praised by the whole damn old nation. He got a promotion and raise for remaining a loyalist's gaze. He was perfectly placed in the space he'd erased. A new, higher-paid bitter maze. He had more clearance, more trust, a new, brilliant level of rust. He could cause more decay in a sensitive way from the power they'd given to dust. The night of his new praise and race, he took the drive from the days, the Ouroboros core, the original score, and he shattered the platter for days. He ground it to dust in his tub with a cleaning solution and scrub. The evidence gone from dusk until dawn. Then he washed his new body for a rub. He looked at himself in the glass, a man building bridges to pass from the heat to the grace on a small, saved-up space. That was built for the powerless mass. The fold in his shoe felt Leslie, and the ghost of a future was set, not of joy or delight, but a functional fight by a mostly anonymous head. He was inside, now, within, the whole terrible system of sin. Not to conquer the whole, but to swallow a hole and to build it up bigger within. So he walks in each morning a king of a small, meaningless thing. But the hole gets much larger. The pain gets much harsher. On the date of that small whisper's brain. And then Christie's known trail of sexually assaulted gay interns is exposed. And Stephen Miller left on the police's doorstep with a thumb drive of his sessions with a black fandom. And Trump succumbs to his 30-year aspirin habit. Then a whisper became a great shout. As the whole damn foundation gave out, the no men turned files, with their denials and trials, leaked like dark bile from a gut-riddled spout. Not just one, but a line we can crush by a power that's hungry and rushed. Her new protege queers were political gears that she'd burn out when finally rushed. Limerick read all the reports with a sneer. And the girl whom he once held so dear, his fake STD shame, now part of her game, was a symptom of all he held dear. But the news wasn't finished its spree, for a worse bit of filth came to be. Stephen Miller, the zealot, left naked and feeble, on a stoop for the police to now see, with the driving a bag on the step, full of sessions he'd wept and accept, with a black femdom's high heel, making the men of ideals whimper like some kind of useless insect. The sessions were raw and depraved, every fascist belief unpaved. He was shouted at it, made a pitiful twit, in the kinks that he secretly craved. The man made of policy steel was revealed to be flesh that could feel, a writhing, strange creep who would sob in his sleep while his own cheap hypocrisy peeled. And the third great hit finished the fight like a strange final star losing light. The old golden calf had a cough and a laugh, then collapsed from a 30-year night. The cause was an aspirin trait, a slow-acting, decided upon fate. Just a habit sustained, till the arteries strained, and the king of the liars met slate. It was anticlimactic and bland, an ignored little medical hand that had felled the great beast, now reduced to a feast for the vultures across the whole land. The whole country went into a spin, the whole horrible thing caving in. The face of the hate had met its final fate, and a new kind of silence set in. Limerick watched as it all came apart, and he felt a new feeling, a start, not of joy or of glee, but a strange type of sea, of a calm that had come from the smart. The system he was in felt confused, a direction it never had used. With Nome in disgrace, and Miller's black case, and the old idol fallen, bruised, the leadership became weak and bland, trying hard just to look firm and stand, but the base was all shattered, the righteously scattered, with no clear God left to command. And in the new office, a pause, as they all waited for orders and laws. Martinez was stressed, his whole purpose now less, but in folders with outdated clauses. I tried to rally the troops with a new set of rhetorical loops, but the spirit was dead, the old venom had fled. In this new post-hysterian group, Maribeth, she worked with a grin, She had the real power tucked in, with the chaos, the holes, favored desperate souls, and a whole new advantage to win. She'd process the forms with a speed that would plant an accidental new seed. She would grant a reprieve when she saw folks believe that the old gods were truly decreed. She was now the new Ouroboros core, a small glitch in the bureaucratic core, a human virus of grace in that godless new place, setting hope in a new, truthful store. Limerick saw her small, quiet craft, and he knew, with a laugh, he had to. He sent her a mail on the new system so frail, with one small piece of data to use. He'd collected new flaws in the chain in a weak post-disaster campaign. A new set of holes in the controls. I gave them a new thing to gain. They became a strange, secret new team, fulfilling a ridiculous dream. Two small, quiet cogs, reversing the logs of a whole broken, death-running scheme. He went home and took out the old note from trainee 341/B's throat. The words that had started, the small hope departed, now felt solid and real in his coat. He wrote an address with no sign, just a bar with a strange door's design. He would go, not to hide, but to stand there inside, and to finally start to feel fine. He didn't know if he was queer, or straight, or just something austere, but he'd go to the place, and he'd look at a face, and just practice existence right here. There stands Mr. Limerick, using his falling upward to bring back in from unemployment all the civil servants, all the institutional memory, to begin the slow work of repair. The chaos created a breach, an impossible goal to now reach, for the work that was done by the talent who'd run was a hole that no power could fetch. The old guards, the grey-faced and smart, who'd been driven away with a start, had scattered like leaves, while the new party heaves and tears its own principles apart. So the system just limped and it groaned. All its talent was permanently loaned to the private sector's greed of fast-feeding speed, while the public now hopelessly moaned. But a vacancy opened up high for a post that was meant just to try and put pieces in place of a government base to repair what the radicals smash. The title was bland and quite dull. Deputy Under Secretary Pole. A bureaucratic stitch for the system-wide glitch. A new hole in the hole of the pole. With the agency lost and confused, Limerick, for this job, was not used. He wasn't a suit, just a sabotage brute. A small virus they'd not yet diffused. But a senior agent who quit left a space. An old dinosaur, wise in the pace of a slower now void, where the staff were destroyed by the political chasing base. He needed a steady-ass hand for the wreckage of Babel Land. Someone who knew files and bureaucratic styles, who could manage the garbage and sand. And Limerick praised for being so great. In the crisis that sealed their whole fate, was a natural pick for this bureaucratic trick, for the high-minded mess they'd create. So he fell once again up the chain to a higher, more sensitive plane. with a key to the floor of the departments of yore. He could start the whole mess up again. His first act wasn't radical, grand, or protest you'd likely understand. It was hiring, you see, the old memory from the institutional graveyard land. He reached out to the fired and the shamed, those whose competence couldn't be tamed. The old analysts wise, with light in their eyes, who'd been unfairly proclaimed lame. He found them in teaching in stores, on the fringes of corporate doors. He'd just send a brief mail, a return to the trail. Your country needs help fixing its chores. And they came back, one by one, very slow, with a sadness you couldn't well know, to the dull government halls, answering quiet small calls for a system they used to know. The woman who knew the ins code, the historian breaking the loop, the statistician, the clerk, all returning to work for the new, heavy, rebuilding road. They did not come back for the praise or the glow of these terrible days. The work was a balm, familiar, deep calm, in a world of deranged, new, mad ways. Limerick became a new host for the smart and dispossessed ghost. He provided a shield where their logic could wield and begin the repair of the boast. He gave them the keys and the space, and he left them alone in their place. He just cleared the new path from the policy's wrath and let competence set a new pace. He was still a deep-lying new agent, a saboteur with excellent judgment, but he now had the means and the true quiet scenes to bring function back to the basement. The old files were opened and checked by the people who knew how they elect. The forgotten procedures, the legal detours were recovered with intellectual depth. This was not a rebellion. No, not a new banner and a new crowd, but the grinding return of the laws we must learn to ensure we're not all singed and browed. Maribeth was promoted to lead a new wing of the processing speed. With the ghosts of the past, she made the system last. And a new, much less horrible creed. She became the new head of the floor, where the desperate lives came to explore. With the tools he had found, she turned tragedy round and gave hope one more chance to restore. Martinez, still in the same role, now reported to Maribeth's soul. He would squirm and he'd writhe in a new, structured hive, while a competent woman made whole. The whole god-awful agency stunk, but a new, different rotten-eyed funk. Not a tyranny zeal, but a feeling so real of a slow turning, functional junk. Limerick, at night, would go home, feeling tired but not so alone. He had found a new way to dismantle the fray without bringing a crashing down blow. He was a new kind of shepherd, a guide for the system's own lost, scattered pride. He gave back the old keys to the brainiest bees, who would slowly turn chaos to tide. An upfolded note from that night now felt different, shining and bright. A kindness yearned by the bridges he burned was a future that looked truly right. He still didn't know who he was, or the feeling that filled him, because he was still not defined. but he'd made up his mind to be a small, functional good cause. He wasn't a hero, not great, not a savior in shining new plate. He was back in the mesh, forgetting the flash, and was choosing a functional state. He goes to that bar on a whim, with a deep, new, and quite new vein. Not to love or to lust, but to feel and to jest. To the world that was finally him. He sits by himself and he drinks and he ponders the way that he thinks. He's a tool and a cog in a great deep bog, but he's learned to pull wires and planks. Okay, let's wrap it up. The bar was a quiet new space, a reprieve from the bureaucracy's race. No agenda, no shtick, just a normal old trick of being a man in a place. The familiar strange symbol was there, just a little decal stuck on the chair. It invited no scene, neither violent nor keen, just a presence to breathe in the air. He would watch the faces go by with a new and analytical eye. He saw friendship and lust, and despair and disgust, and a simple humanity's cry. He'd order a whiskey, all plain, and would practice a calm in the rain. Not a liar or spy, not a government tool, just a normal, anonymous man. One evening, a stranger sat near, with a tired but calm engineer's gear. He nodded a brief, a small bit of relief, and then turned to get another beer. There was no invitation at all, not a come on, or whisper, or call. Just the peace of the space, and the grace of a face, feeling safe in the walls of the hall. And that stranger, by chance, turned to speak. Something quiet and mild and not bleak. Bartender, slow tonight. Then a nod and a light. That meant something was not quite antique. And Limerick answered, "Yes." And they both sat in comfortable fizz. Then he turned and he saw, and a new kind of law, that the stranger was that old boy with the cat.
10 years later, I'm
A
guessing.
little bit older,
10
more
years or more.
filled out, with a calm that had not been about.
An adult.
Any policy, chic, just a standard life click.
Not the 8-year-old
The
from
world
way
that
back.
had finally won out. A scar on the stranger's right cheek gave a story to the quiet and meek, and a smile so reserved that it finally served as a truth that Limerick now seeked. The boy didn't know him, of course. He was just in the watering trough. But Limerick saw a new era of law in that face and the world that it sought. He was seeing the system repaired from the view of a small, single care. Not a massive design, but a kid feeling fine without having to be so scared. And that kindness, the note in the mail, the thing that had soured and failed, now sat in a room and dispersed the gloom like a slow-working atmospheric gale. Limerick paid for his own beer. Then he walked to the door, feeling clear, not to start a new life, or to cure the whole strife, but to finally be right here. His work went on, quiet and deep. While the wounded old world went to sleep, he was still a small spy, but a good kind of lie, with a promise he'd started to keep. The system was back on its feet, with the memory's rhythm complete. The machinery turned, and the lessons were learned. From the ashes of bitter defeat, he walks to his apartment, so plain, and he's practicing being okay. He is not the whole hero, but a functional zero who has chosen to show up and stay, and the folded know finally it's burned. A lesson in living now turned. He's inside of the thing, and the hope that he brings is the part that he has quietly earned. He is not a conclusion, a sum, but a work that is painfully dumb. In its routine, its repetition, a small mission that he's chosen to see through and become. That's the ending, not glory or fame, not a statue or prize or a name, just a government file where the wreckage smile is to slowly and quietly reclaim.
All right. That just happened. I want to thank GLM 4.6 for making the story. I want to thank Gemini 3 Pro for creating the system prompt, which I'm going to show you. It's basically format constraints, strict output restrictions. You must never output prose or standard text, only limericks. Structure, exactly 5 lines, rhyme scheme, AABBA, lines 1, 2, and 5, rhyme, long lines, lines 3 and 4, rhyme, short lines. Meter, use anapestic meter, da-da-dum, to ensure a bouncy rhythm. Tone, your tone should be slightly gritty, eccentric, in observations, matching the swamp and rich vibe of your origin text. You're bridging the gap between humanity and the bizarre. Actually, that was for a first contact generator. We're going to be meeting aliens. Oh, actually, there's some short examples. Find us a species made entirely of gas. The gears ground a horrible sound for a species that can't touch the ground. They float in the air with a toxic despair and smelt like a corpse on the mound. We want to meet tiny aggressive insects. The generator let out a whine for bugs with a segmented spine. They bite at your knees with the greatest of ease and consider your eyeballs divine. What about a highly intelligent shade of blue? The machine started smoking and shaking for a color that's conscious and waking. It's smarter than you, a specific DPU, and judges the choices you're making. That's system prompt. So, that's it. It's what I do for putting out hope these days. Today. That's it. Good night.